Alright, have a 93 Chevy Suburban 2500. This thing has got me through a lot. It still runs and drives fantastic, but the body's falling apart. But today, doing a donut flange gasket. Exhaust flange, where it mates up from the exhaust pipe up to the manifold on the driver's side. So I took my wonderful Milwaukee torque gun here and I snapped the bolt, so that was fantastic. Then I spent about 2 hours air hammering that bolt to death just to be able to get that bolt off, and now I have a snap stud. So let me take you around and show you exactly what I have to do. Alright, let's go underneath the vehicle here. I got some jack stands. Now those jack stands are rated at 4,000 pounds, but my ramps are rated at 12, so they're just extra as a just in case. There's my air hose for the air hammer. And then, like I said, let's get under here and take a look real fast. So, first stud came off no problem. If I can get this to focus. And that stud is underneath. I don't know if you're even going to be able to see it. It's right there. It's kind of sticking out. Very hard to see. That's the snapped one right there. I tried to take an air hammer to see if I could hit it from the side a little bit, but because of all the lines and the rusty lines, I don't want to bust anything, and I don't want to air hammer something other than the bolt, so I gave up on that because it was not moving. And that bolt right there, or where there should be a bolt, there is not a bolt, but there is a drilled out hole because the mechanic that I took it to that replaced this a year ago that did not do a very good job. They drilled a hole in there and they put a bolt in there. That's all fine, but they just overall didn't do a very good job. That all has to be cleaned up inside. And then this piece right here will then go back up onto those bolts. And then I will have spring bolts that will connect to there. And I will tighten everything down lightly enough that it's not going to snap, but tight enough that it's going to hang into where it needs to hang into. Let's get started. This past, I had to run to the auto store and actually grab the required parts, and then the auto store I went to didn't have the required parts, but they were very generous with their time looking to see if they had it. And then when they realized they didn't have it, even though they said they had it online, I ended up going to one of their other chain stores that was about a mile away, and then I picked up the parts there. So they had the gasket in stock, part number 60584. This is for the driver's side where the pipe connects to the manifold. And then the spring bolts is what they did not have, even though their site said it, part 675216. And then I ended up going back, went to another store to get this. Then I went back to the previous store to get this because they didn't have this at the store I went to. And this is for actually applying sealer around the base of the gasket, around the gasket, to create a more permanent seal so you don't get an exhaust leak. So here's the things that I'm going to be using. That's a 1/2 inch right there. But I believe that I had to use a 13 or 14 millimeter as well for these bolts right here. But like I said, the mechanic that I went to, he put it on about a year ago, and it's failed fairly quickly. There's the gasket right there. The gasket failed, and he stripped one of the holes, which is fine. He put a bolt, did everything he needed to do. That solved the problem. But when I say that, he didn't put new bolts in. So he reused the old spring bolts, which were very rusted and very corroded and in bad shape. So he didn't want to spend the time to do that. He did not clean out the holes where he was placing the new gasket. So they were, they had rust debris and things like that. And that was never cleaned out. And he never put any sealer around anything. So it was $135, I believe, to have that gasket done. I had the other gasket blown out on the passenger side of the vehicle, and that one cost me $75. So it was $135 in the Midwest, $75 down south. So here's the tools I'm going to be using. This is a 3/8, my extension, and then I'm going to use the stud extractor to get that broken stud out. And the stud extractor is actually a very good idea. Let's crack that sucker open. And this, as you tighten it on the base here, can't do it. Can I? No, it's not going to let me do it. But as you turn this and tighten it, it's going to get tighter on the stud itself. and then you can go ahead and twist this out, and then it should carry the stud with it. Whether it's going to work or not, we're about to find out, because I just bought it. And I've seen wonderful things on YouTube about people using it, but that doesn't mean that it actually works. Sometimes people just peddle products, and I'm not peddling anything. I'm not peddling any of this. I'm not telling you to buy any of this stuff. I'm just telling you the stuff that I bought. If you buy it or not, it's your choice 100%. So let me grab that, and then I got myself my gloves. And then, on top of all that fun stuff, let's go over and let's grab the eye protection, because you're going to get a ton of rust and dirt and debris and everything else all over yourself. I have these to keep as much out as possible, but even with that, it gets in your hair, gets all over your face and your mouth. It's just... And then here's the ramps that I'm using. 12,000 pound, 2 ramp set, and like I said, I got the other jack stands underneath just in case. I have bricks in the back and in the front of both back tires, so I'm not taking any chances. The only thing I don't have under here that I would like to have is another jack to actually put underneath the vehicle, but other than that, I feel pretty confident. So far, this job's probably taken me about 2.5 hours, and that's only because of that stupid bolt that snapped off. No fault of my own, just because, like I said, previous mechanic used the rusty corroded bolts and did a half job of putting it back together. So now I'm paying for that mistake, and it cost me $100 and something, and I get to do the job twice. Now granted, it lasted a year, but whatever that means, not very much. So let's get this done. Get into the fun, because using that stud extractor, it ended up snapping that bolt off as well. They were just seized in there. Like I said, those bolts were original. They were never removed. Yeah, I know people do it all the time. I'm just saying that, if I'm paying to have the job, then I'd rather just have it done right. So I'm going to be using these. I don't know if I'm going to use these nuts or not, but I have washers if I do decide to use those. I wanted something a little more beefy on there. Not that I'm worried about that stripping out. And then I'm going to be using this drill bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill out the little bit that's left over. There's not a whole lot left in there. It's going to damage the threads. I'll be able to slide one of those bolts down through there, and then that'll be my new bolt. Alright, so there is the stud extractor, and this thing bit. I mean, it really bit. So it had no problem grabbing this stud and taking it out, but you see what it did to the top. Penetrating oil, doesn't matter what you do, And then here is the remnants of what's left over of that other nut that I had to air hammer off for about 2 hours. I mean, I destroyed this thing to the point where there was nothing left, and I just definitely going to want to make sure you have some hearing protection if you have to do that. It's very loud, but I'm going to show you the spot where I got to drill out that, and then I should be a-okay. I should be good to go. That's the hope, at least. Alright, you see where it's busted right there next to my wonderful Fram filter. You got that little piece that's left in there. So I'm going to get myself my drill, and I'm going to drill it out, and then got to be very careful when I drill. I don't want to hit anything else. Then I'm going to put a bolt in there and do what I got to do. I mean, if I'm lucky, I might be able to drill it and actually save the threads, or I might be able to retap those threads. But I might just slide a bolt. I mean, the other one is already damaged, and a bolt was slid down there, so I can do it to both sides. It's not that big of a deal, but definitely something that can be done in 45 minutes is taking half a day. This is actually day 2. I had to stop yesterday. I wasn't able to finish up because it was getting too dark, and I didn't want to pull a bunch of lights out, wake up the neighbors with drilling and tapping and all the things that I had to do to be able to get this snapped bolt out right there. Here's the box of bolts that I need, of which I'm not even going to be using them. So I can probably take these back and just get my money back for them. Or not, I don't know, I'll figure it out in a second. But that's $9. But I did get some muffler and tailpipe sealer up to 2,000 degrees. Still got my gloves, some of the tools, and you can see where the gasket just started to deteriorate. But earlier I criticized the mechanic that did the work, and I want to take that criticism back, because this job was a complete pain in the butt. When I took it to him, he was very weary about doing it in the first place. And then he decided that, okay, he would do it. He actually took about 2 weeks before he actually got on the job. But yeah, you can see that, how bad that is. He did it, and only snapped one bolt, where I only snapped one bolt. And then now I'm going to have to thread this one in. I had to tap the hole that I drilled, and the drill just would not go straight. I would have had to take the whole exhaust system down to get the drill for the drills that I have, which I got that one right there. Long story short, I ended up having to drill out the hole, and the drill bit, just because of the way that piece broke, it would not sit in there straight. I did not have a hole punch or a punch to be able to center a hole on there, and so I walled out the hole a little bit bigger than I wanted, but I still had plenty of material left that I was able to tap with the tap that I have. And then this is the one that I'm going to be putting up in there, and this is actually one that's in there now. There's one identical to that, and I'm going to have to, I got two of these. There was one and it was all completely deteriorated, but I'm going to be putting this one and the other one. I'm going to be putting some sealer on this right here to make sure everything seals properly and get that noise quieted down, and hopefully solve that exhaust leak on that side. But yeah, so got sockets there, and then there is the tap that I used, and then I used a 9/16 socket to be able to drive that in with a long extension. And then there's the bolt I actually tested it out on. So today I put some cardboard under there. I got very smart and decided that I'm not going to get covered in rust and everything else. So I got myself a nice sweater on, some safety goggles, and I got a piece of cardboard under there. So at least that would help with that. And other than that, that's it. I want to go underneath and kind of show you where I'm at. I'll show you what's going on with this right here, and then to tell you that this job is way more challenging than I expected. Where are you, buddy? I gotta be careful because I got oils and stuff up in here. So hopefully that can be seen, but that hole is a little walled out. So, but that's okay. All right, so I'm gonna go underneath the vehicle now. After I vacuum out under there and get all those rust chunks off, I'm gonna go out under there. And just side note, I did use some penetrating oil. I had it in a little cup, and I put my tap into there and let it soak in there. And then when I tapped that bolt hole underneath the truck, I ended up having penetrating oil in there, so the tap went nice and smooth. Went very slowly, and then I did use a socket wrench, but I hand tightened. I did not use an impact, so don't drive an impact with. If you're going to tap a hole, it's much better to just use a socket wrench, something that you can get a feel for so you know how much pressure is being put on. But regardless of this being snapped off the way it is, when I tapped it out, it did go through nice and smooth, and it did go straight. So when the spring sits up against where it's supposed to, this spring or possibly the old one that I have, it will sit nice and straight and do what it needs to do. All right, so I ended up putting the 2000 degree sealer on there. And I'll show you the sealer that I have. It's the same sealer. Muffler and tailpipe sealer. Put a little bit on there. Try to make sure no exhaust fumes escape. Got everything put on. All the new spring bolts are in. And the old spring bolt, which is right here. See how squished that is? These are the ones that were left on there. So when the mechanic did the work, and this is one of my complaints, no new spring bolts, no new anything. Charged me as if he was doing a complete job, but then did half the job. He got the gasket in, and he ended up getting the nuts off, but he reused all the old materials, and the problem is that all those old materials, he told me he was going to use new ones, and he didn't. So that's the problem that I have overall. It is a hard job. I'm not knocking anybody that has to, that's trying to get paid and do what they have to do and get done, move on to the next job. But at the same point in time, please don't shortchange me. So anyway, here's my impact. I had to use my 1/2-inch extension, and then I used a 1/2 socket and a 15mm socket. Now the 15mm socket is for these, and the 1/2-inch was for those bolts I put in. So now I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to show you. Good tip before you put the spring on, because the springs are about double the size of this, is I took a vice grip and I compressed them down and I held them there for a little bit, put my hand around it so it wouldn't go flying out, had safety glasses on, the whole deal, and then just kept going around the edges, clamping, holding it down, clamping, holding it down, clamping, holding it down, and then just letting it sit for a little bit. And that compressed the spring, made it a little bit shorter so I could actually get it on, because I was at the point where I thought, well, maybe I will reuse this, but I did everything I could not to have to reuse this, because this is just like basically shot. I'll probably take it to the dump. So vacuumed out my little area. It's my little piece of sliding cardboard. I call this a Kentucky creeper. So I'm going to go underneath here, and then I'm going to show you the finished job. So let me set this down for a second. I know there's a lot of rust and stuff under here, but it's surface rust, and the truck runs fantastic. So there we go. There's the completed job. That is a 12 millimeter nut with fine threads, and it is threaded up into the hole that I tapped up there. So that's perfectly good. It's got a washer on it. It's brand new spring on that one. I did reuse that old bolt. I could not get it out, and I did not want to snap it and go through another day of hassle. And then there's the other one. Now this one was the hardest one to do because I used a new spring bolt, and the new spring bolt was extremely difficult. Now if you look at this side, and then this is the one I just had done. Let me see if I can get some light up into there. They reused all my old materials on this as well. Actually, maybe not. Maybe some of it was replaced spring bolt wise. But yeah, those are looking pretty mean too, bolt wise. I know they didn't take them out. It took the mechanic about an hour or less to get it done. I believe I spent a lot more time just because of the fact that, it's the first time doing this, number one. And number two, chasing back and forth to get parts, and looking for the right socket, and then looking for the right tap and everything else. And I have everything organized at my disposal. It's just trying to figure out what I'm going to do, what's the game plan going in. And there we go. You see all that sealer that's up in there. I'm going to start it up, and then let's see how it runs. It was very loud before. It sounded like I was at a drag strip. All right, let's get the door unlocked. Well, let's see how it sounds. Pretty excited. It's pretty sad, but excited nonetheless. Well, it's still pretty loud. I might have to tighten that up, find out what's going on. All right, this side is perfectly fine. Smell the exhaust from here. So I think the donut. Nope. This side, on the other hand, now it's the passenger side that's rumbling. So I'm going to see if I can tighten that up and see if that solves it. If not, I'll be performing the same problem or same solution on this side. I got the bolts off that side. Warmed up the truck. Got hot enough. I was able to zip the bolts off without an issue. So I might try to salvage those bolts and just get a gasket, or I might just go from scratch like I did on this side. But this side is, I don't smell anything anymore. I used to smell an exhaust coming out of this side, and I think that's just because. I think whoever did the job, like I said, when the mechanic did the job over here, he didn't put any sealer. He just threw an inexpensive gasket in and just called it a day, and hey, on the road, just get the job done so I can move on to the next. That's the positive about doing work yourself. The negative is having to deal with what I did. And see, this one, I zipped the bolts out and it's ready to go, and I could do this one in 30 to 45 minutes. That one was just a complete fight all the way around. But anybody that's ever busted a bolt can tell you, the challenge of dealing with that after the fact, tapping and everything else. So we'll see in time if that holds up. If for some reason that side does not hold up on the driver's side, I will post a video and you will be the first one to know. But in there, I say we get this done. Alright, job's all completed. I'm going to start it up and see what happens. You can see my sealer up there. I got that all around. I got the spring bolts tightened down. I might tighten them a little bit more. I got that nut right there, that rusted thing, sucks. So if you're ever going to do this job, use those. Get the new bolts with the new nuts, and those new nuts go on so much easier. Nothing like new nuts, right? I got one there. I did keep the same bolts on there. I did put the sealer, and I put a new gasket. Look at what's left of that gasket. And this gasket was just replaced. I literally had this done 6 months ago, so just junk. And then they ended up putting these washers, and they put those bolts over there, and what a joke, just garbage. So I'm going to tighten this up, and then I'll get it started up, and then we'll see if it leaks. All right, look at all this fun stuff here. Got all that fancy dirt on me. All right. Let's see if this bad boy's going to leak and make a noise or if it's solved. Nice and quiet. 249,905 miles. Can't hear a peep. Better. See that new bolt up on top. And I do not smell on either side now. I used to be able to open the hood, and after they replaced the gaskets, I could still smell it. I smell nothing. Fantastic. Nothing under here. I can smell it back there. Look at this. What they ended up doing to me. This is the last time I had it in. The hangers are all falling off. Of course, they're rusted as hell, but they did that. So they cut them. That's supported by a coat hanger. So what I'm going to do now is get this angle grinded, and I'm going to weld that on there, tack weld it, and get that put back up in place. But I smell the exhaust back there, but I did not smell it up here. No, I don't know if I'm smelling it back there or here, but I'll tack weld that, and this job's done. So all in all, it took probably about 4 hours to knock it out. This right passenger side went much smoother than the driver's side because of that busted bolt. Having to drill it out, it just took forever. So just prepare to get dirty. All the parts cost about $30 for everything. Got them at the local auto parts store with 25% off coupon, and plus I had some $5 and $10 off coupons, so it came out to about $30 after everything. The ramps did fabulous, so this job's done. Probably move on to the next thing. Oil change.